All right, so welcome to our deep dive. This time we're tackling the story of David, future
Mm.
king of Israel.
Yeah.
We're looking at this new translation. It's really interesting. It presents his life almost like a fairy tale,
Oh, wow.
but there's a lot more to it than that.
I bet.
We're going to uncover how he goes from like shepherded to this incredible warrior.
Okay.
There's also this crazy love story woven through the whole thing and a ton of political drama that almost rips the kingdom apart.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, this translation really focuses on the narrative side of things. Like, how do you stay strong when everything's going wrong? Betrayal, love, all that.
Ah, so it's about resilience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And right from the beginning, we meet David as a young shepherd. He has no clue he's been chosen well, for something huge.
He's like that classic hero thing, right?
Yeah, like Luke Skywalker just hanging out on Tatooine. He's just
Yeah.
waiting for his big moment,
Yeah, I get it. And that makes his rise even more interesting.
right? Because we know he's going to be great, but he's just out there with his sheep, totally oblivious.
Totally. So how does it all start?
Well, things get really interesting when Samuel shows up, the prophet,
Oh, yeah.
he secretly anoints David as the next king. It's super dramatic, especially because there's already a king, King Saul.
Ooh, that's going to cause some problems. So what's Saul like?
This translation paints a really complex picture of him,
He's powerful, yeah.
but also incredibly insecure. And let's just say he's got a temper.
Like prone to outbursts.
You could say that.
It makes you think, like, what does being a leader do to you? Especially if you always feel threatened.
Absolutely. And get this, David ends up in Saul's court because his music, it calms Saul down.
Really?
Yeah, it's like he's fighting with a heart, not a sword.
That's why.
He creates this strange bond between them, like super intimate.
I mean, it shows a lot of vulnerability, right? On both sides. Saul's this king letting his guard down, and David's just this young guy offering comfort through music.
That's a good point.
It says a lot about how art and emotions and maybe even power all connect.
Yeah, definitely. And then as if things weren't dramatic enough, you've got the love story.
Oh, here we go. Tell me about it.
Princess Michal, Saul's daughter, she falls for David. Hard.
Oh, no. This can't be good.
Not your average fairy tale romance,
Oh,
right?
right.
Because her dad is literally trying to kill the guy she loves.
Talk about forbidden love.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And Michal's just caught in the middle. It's heartbreaking. She loves David, but she's also loyal to her father.
That's such a classic conflict, isn't it? Love versus duty. We all face that kind of thing, even if it's not quite as intense.
Yeah, you're right. And Saul, well, he's not exactly going to let this opportunity slip by. He starts sending David on these crazy, dangerous missions. It's almost like he's hoping David won't come back.
Wow. That's cold.
It shows how power can really twist things up, even within a family.
It's straight up manipulation, right?
Huh.
Saul using his daughter's love as a weapon.
Exactly. He's paranoid and will do anything to stay in control.
So what does David do?
Well, while Saul's busy scheming, David's out there winning. He defeats Goliath.
Talk about an underdog.
Yeah. And he keeps leading the Israelite army to victory after victory.
Okay, but the more David wins,
The worse it is for Saul. You got it.
it just fuels his jealousy.
Totally. Every victory chips away at Saul's ego. It's this awful cycle. David succeeds, Saul gets more paranoid.
Man, success can be a double-edged sword.
It really can. And then, just when you think it can't get any worse, Saul does something truly awful. He forces Michal to marry someone else.
Oh, no. Seriously.
Rips her away from David,
Ugh.
uses her as a pawn in his game.
That's just cruel.
It is. But you almost have to admire his ruthlessness.
I don't know about that.
I mean, strategically speaking, this is a blow that hits David on a personal level.
For sure, it's not just politics, it's deeply personal. Imagine being betrayed by the person you love and finding out it was all your enemy's plan.
Exactly. So here's David heartbroken, hunted, and facing impossible odds. This is where the story takes a turn. He has to go into exile, becomes a fugitive.
Wow. On the run in his own land.
He does manage to gather this group of loyal followers, though. Some become legendary, like the 3 and the 30. These elite warriors, super loyal, incredibly strong.
It's interesting how the story shifts, right? David was almost passively waiting for his destiny, and now he's taking charge.
That's a good point. He's not just waiting to be king anymore. He's building a following, getting stronger, preparing for the fight that's coming.
It's like he's becoming a different kind of hero.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost like a folk hero, right? Gathering his band of loyal warriors.
Yeah, I get that. Kind of like Robin Hood and his merry men.
Exactly.
Okay.
fighting against a corrupt system.
And you're right, it's not just about being tough. The stories of what they do are pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
They pull off these incredible feats of bravery, risking their lives to protect David. It makes you wonder, like, why were they so loyal?
Yeah, what was it beyond just following orders?
It really shows the power of that chosen family, finding your people in the middle of all that chaos.
It's a total contrast to Saul.
Right.
Like, as David gets stronger, Saul becomes more and more isolated.
Yeah, it's like one's all about connection and the other's about fear.
Two sides of the same coin.
And then, just when you think David has enough on his plate,
Yeah.
another blow. Years have passed. He's trying to build a new life. And then he finds out about Michal.
What? What happened?
She was forced into another marriage.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
It's really rough, especially after everything he's been through. Their love story was already tragic, but this is a whole new level.
It must be crushing. Like, even if he's this great warrior, he can't protect everyone he cares about.
Yeah, and the source really captures that, his vulnerability. He's not just some fearless hero. He's human.
It makes him so much more relatable, even though it's set in this, ancient world.
Totally. And it really shows how deep betrayal can cut. The source doesn't shy away from the impact it has on him. Psychologically, I mean.
What do you mean?
Well, he has nightmares, anxiety.
Hmm.
He even thinks about suicide.
Wow. That's heavy. It adds another layer to his character, doesn't it?
It does. It shows that even the strongest people can be broken by grief and trauma. It reminds us that it's okay to ask for help. Find healthy ways to deal with these things.
For sure. And the story doesn't try to give easy answers. It shows his struggle, but it's honest about it.
Right. It's like a different kind of hero's journey. Not just about battles, but about facing those internal struggles too.
Grief, loss, trauma.
Yeah. And those are things that we all connect with, no matter when we live, where we're from.
They're universal.
So while David is going through all of this, Saul's still out there, holding on to power, obsessed with getting rid of David.
It feels like they're on a collision course.
Totally. A showdown is coming. And it's not even about who wins at this point. It's about the cost of winning.
What do you mean?
What will David have to give up to become king? Will he even survive? And Saul? What's less of him after all this paranoia and rage?
This story really makes you think about that dark side of ambition, how power can corrupt.
Yeah, it's like holding up a mirror to human nature. We all have the potential for both good and bad.
And as the story moves towards that final confrontation, you have to wonder, what will David become?
And what will he have to sacrifice to get there?
Yeah, it's almost like these two different ideas of leadership are clashing.
Right.
You've got David, chosen by God, but also forging his own path.
Yeah.
And then Saul, holding on to power for dear life.
It makes you think, what does it really take to be a leader?
Exactly. In this translation, it doesn't make David out to be perfect.
Oh, interesting.
He makes mistakes, he gets angry, sometimes he wants revenge, he even doubts himself.
I mean, that makes him more human, right?
Yeah, even though he's got this huge destiny, he's still relatable.
Totally. We see the human side of being king, the struggles, the tough choices.
It's not just about being powerful.
It's about responsibility.
Compassion. Making decisions that could mean life or death.
And that brings us to that final showdown between David and Saul. So much tension. You can feel it in the story.
Yeah, for sure. Saul is just consumed by this darkness. He's hunting David relentlessly.
And David has to make a choice. Strike back and finally become king.
Or find another way.
A way that doesn't make him like Saul.
Right.
I was on the edge of my seat reading this part, even though I knew what was going to happen.
It's that buildup, right?
Yes.
Everything comes down to this moment.
Exactly. And the source handles it so well, it doesn't give you easy answers. David could kill Saul so many times.
It would be justified.
But he hesitates. He wants justice. He wants to protect his people.
Fact.
He believes he shouldn't be the one to take Saul's life.
That's a tough position to be in.
It's like he's wrestling with his conscience. What does it mean to have power? How do you get it?
And those questions, they're still relevant today.
Yeah, when is violence the answer?
Yeah.
How far can you go to defend yourself?
What happens when good intentions get twisted by power?
The story really makes you think.
And that's why it's so powerful. It forces us to confront those difficult questions about ourselves, about the choices we make.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into David's story, what are the big takeaways? What can we learn from this shepherd turned warrior turned king?
Well, one thing's for sure. Being a leader isn't just about power. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
David shows us that strength comes from overcoming challenges, learning from mistakes, and leading with humility.
Not just being the strongest.
Right. And I think ultimately, even the most epic stories are about human connection, the bonds we make, how we affect the world around us.
It makes you think about your own story, doesn't it?
It does.
What choices are you making? What kind of impact will you have?